You're listening to the E2C Network, podcast by Auburn fans for Auburn fans. War Eagle Auburn family, and welcome back to Inside the Jungle, your source for Auburn men's basketball analysis and discussion here on the E2C Network. Now, this is the first time we're going to be doing an episode where we're not really discussing Auburn men's basketball in much detail. We might bring some references in here or there. What we're doing on this episode is we're breaking down the 2021 SEC tournament, looking at how the bracket is set up right now without Auburn this year. Yes, it's very sad. We're going to break that down, take a look at it, and see, maybe make some predictions as well. It used to be when I had Clint Richardson on here, he would never make predictions. It was like part of the shtick of the show, trying to get him to make predictions. I don't think I'll have as hard of a time with my friend and co-host these days, Mr. Gray Oldenburg. Gray,
yes. I will make predictions. I will make predictions.
Thank you, sir.
Bold predictions.
Oh, bold predictions.
Only
really?
Bold predictions for me.
So you're going Vanderbilt all the way is what I'm hearing.
Absolutely. And they're beating Alabama by 90 in the semifinals.
So Vanderbilt going all the way is no. Vanderbilt beating Alabama, likely though. Likely. Yeah, that's just, we have said this several times on our Inside the Jungle episode breakdowns of games and stuff, especially when Alabama was in the equation, that we both think that Alabama is not the best team in the SEC, even though they're the number one seed.
Yeah,
they are.
Absolutely. They just haven't played the best brand of basketball as of recent. And I'm not saying that they're playing a bad brand of basketball. I'm saying there is a team, specifically Arkansas, that's playing a much better brand of basketball, and they're winning. So.
Absolutely. And if Alabama had shown that they were the clear favorite over Arkansas in their matchups, they split the two, which is something that you typically see, you know, with good teams. They don't usually see a dominance one way or the other. But if we had seen that, I would say, okay, maybe Alabama is the best team in the league. But Arkansas, I think, has that case and has made that, especially the times that we've played them there. So as we addressed, no Auburn in this bracket right here. Though I think we should talk about this a little bit, Gray. Where do you think they would have seeded? And I know we don't necessarily have all the numbers to kind of analyze that because obviously it's based off win-loss record and matchups and stuff like that. But where would you think Auburn would fit into this?
I think I did see like the standings earlier, and we were like, I want to say 10 or 11.
Okay.
Which puts us down where Georgia and South Carolina are right now. And I think Georgia has a good, first game against Missouri. That's going to be a good game. And South Carolina plays Ole Miss. If South Carolina's been really inconsistent. They've shown that they'll beat LSU and then they'll lose to Auburn. And I don't know what to expect from South Carolina, but Ole Miss is playing well. And then you got two teams that play the winner of those two games that are also playing really well. I think Auburn would have gone on the lower side of the bracket there. It would have missed the top-seeded Crimson Tide, which I don't know how I feel about that. But, I think Auburn could have won 2 or 3 games in this tournament.
I do as well. And I will say that for across the SEC. And I forget which commentator on TV said it the other night, but they said that every team that's in this tournament, maybe minus a Vanderbilt, but even them, maybe to some degree, could potentially win at least one game, has the capability. There's not a team that's just absolutely awful. There's some bad teams in some areas, but there's nobody that's just absolutely awful and shouldn't even be in the tournament, unless you're Auburn, who apparently is getting punished for doing awful things, which we still don't understand what those are. That's not either here or there. I agree with you, though. Wrong show. I think that we would have fallen into the 10 or the 11 slot there. Yep. I get the feeling, just based off our matchups with Georgia and South Carolina, and again, we'd have to look at how it would have all shaken out just records wise, but I think we would have slid into that 10 spot there. Yeah. And I think we would have ended up with Missouri, who we beat. And I would have loved to see that matchup again.
Me too.
Problem is, though, we would have run smack dab into Arkansas, who we've shown that we cannot beat this year.
Yep.
So I do think that Auburn would have been on the less favorable side of the bracket and probably would have gotten one win. Maybe a second win if they were lucky, but I wouldn't see them, based off what we've seen this year, injuries wise, all that kind of stuff playing into it, going much further. Could you have seen them making a run further than that?
If we go into that 10 slot, I do see us having a great game against a team like Missouri or Ole Miss, but like that Arkansas team they're going to win it.
They are underrated. They are absolutely under. Eric Musselman is got them playing very, very well. And they are going to probably be the best chance for the SEC to make some noise in the tournament thus far. Sorry, Crimson Tide fans. We'll get to you later. We'll get there. All right, so no Auburn. So that means there's usually 2 opening round games to play into the actual full tournament there. And you usually have the 11 versus 14 and the 12 versus 13. So the 11, 14 is not there. That South Carolina already gets into the slot there. Let's start with 12 versus 13. Vanderbilt versus Texas A&M. Obviously, and no arguments, they are the 2 worst teams in the SEC.
Yeah.
What do you think about this matchup? Who do you think would win?
You nailed it. And they are the 2 worst teams in the SEC. If we had to pick 2 worst teams, like you said earlier, there's not a 1 or a 2 teams that can't win a game or multiple games in this tournament, because as the SEC wasn't so great at the top end like we usually were this year with like Kentucky, Tennessee, Auburn, like we've seen over the past Florida over the past few years. The SEC is very decent throughout.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess I'm going to ride Scottie Pippen Jr. and I'm going to say he goes off. I'm going to take Vanderbilt.
See, I'm going to differ with you a little bit.
Okay.
Here, and I don't know why. And I think the smart money is to go with Vanderbilt on this, because as we saw in our game with them, they kind of gave us a little bit of a scare at certain times in the game. We eventually did get the win. We got the win also against Texas A&M.
It's because their arena.
Look, I'm already upset enough about Auburn not being in the tournament. You're going to get me upset about that, talking about that arena. That's not even an arena. That's the Dante's 4th level of where. I don't know. It's anyway. All right. I would probably pick Texas A&M solely because I don't think either of these 2 teams are going to go much further. And so I feel like it's a safe risk to take at this point.
Okay. Yeah.
So I will, be a little bit on the adventurous side and say the 13th seed slides in there to take on number 5, Florida. So let's start with that now. We'll work our way down the bracket from the very top. It's listed here of what we're looking at. 9 versus 8, probably going to be the most even matchup you'll see the entire time, especially the way things are seeded out usually. Mississippi State at number 9 takes on let me say that again, number 8, Kentucky. Not number 1, number 2, maybe on a slightly bad year, number 3. Number 8, Kentucky. First of all, can we just celebrate that Kentucky is just finally not in the top 5 or top 3? Absolutely amazing.
It's refreshing.
It's so nice. Like, John Calipari over there with all his little 5 stars is just suffering in the number 8 slot. I love every bit of it. I'm sorry. I know that's sour grapes, but I love it. Kentucky versus Mississippi State. What you think?
Give me Kentucky.
Really?
Give me Kentucky. Yeah. Well, I feel like at some point you got to recognize that Calipari is still a top 2 coach in this league behind Pearl, of course. And I guess just like the one before, that's one that you could go either way and have valid reasons to go either way, or not valid reasons to go either way. But sure, I'll take Kentucky.
So I think, honestly, I'm probably going to slide with you on Kentucky as well, but I want to make a case for Mississippi State. We saw in the last game versus Auburn, they're a team that really wants to slow down the pace because they're not great at scoring themselves. Kentucky at times has also had a difficulty of scoring this year. Mm-hmm. And I think that's why I think this is a great matchup here, because you've got kind of like teams. The problem is Brandon Boston has kind of started to rise to the occasion finally. It just took him all season to do it. And so I think from that simple fact alone, this was already kind of a push for me, which makes sense, the 8 versus 9 situation. Yeah. I would definitely say that because of Brandon Boston starting to get things together for himself, that Kentucky does get the win over Mississippi State, which would push them, we both agree, into the matchup versus the number 1 seed Alabama in the quarterfinals. So let's move on to game 3. That will be what we have disagreed on, Texas A&M or Vanderbilt. But that will be against number 5, Florida. What we don't disagree on, I think, is that Florida
will win. Yes.
Can you make any case for Texas A&M?
No.
Just move on.
Next, yeah.
Just move on at this point. I'm sorry, Aggies. I'm sorry, Commodores. This is not your year. Y'all have had some decent years in basketball in the past, but not, especially Florida's one of the better teams. They kind of put it to us, and I don't think they're going to have much trouble. at all with the Commodores or the Aggies. So they will move on to game 7 in the quarterfinals versus number 4 Tennessee. We'll talk about that in just a second. Number 10 Georgia versus number 7 Missouri in game 4. What say you about this matchup?
This one's hard. This one is really hard. Earlier in the year, I would have easily picked Missouri. They came off the started SEC play playing great. And, they have a really good resume. They beat Alabama. They beat Illinois, who's one of the top teams in the country right now. So they've got some good wins, but they've got some bad losses. And a loss to Auburn is not a good loss for a Missouri team that has such a good resume. Other than that,
yeah.
But Georgia gave Alabama problems yesterday on Saturday.
Yeah.
And, they've been playing pretty well too. They've got wins over Kentucky and, that's not really impressive, but it's tough. I could see Georgia winning. I really could, but I'm going to go with Missouri.
So you've got two different teams on two different trajectories. Georgia started at the bottom and I won't say like risen a lot because they're the number 10 seed, but they've showed a lot of fight on the back half. They avoided the sweep at Auburn at the Tigers' hands. And Missouri was like they were the darlings of the SEC to start off conference play. After their very impressive non-conference performance where they had I think you and I discussed it. They had the most impressive resume for the NCAA tournament. And that's kind of changed a little bit after the way they performed in conference play here. So the question is has the trajectory been too steep one way or the other for one of the other teams to overcome? I just got a gut feeling that is as much of a ride that Georgia's having right now and doing well and playing well against the better parts of the teams in the SEC. I just think Missouri is going to squeak this one out and end up against Arkansas. So I'm going to go with Missouri to go on to game 8, which we'll touch on in just a second. Seed number 11, South Carolina, Frank Martin's team versus number 6, Ole Miss. Kind of a shock that Ole Miss was number 6, but when you see the conference standings break down, it makes sense for them to be there. I just don't think of them as that close to the top 10, or excuse me, the top 5. So how do you feel about the Gamecocks versus the Rebels?
I like South Carolina. I like Coach Frank Martin. I've said on this show that I like Coach Frank Martin. He's dude's a great coach. Just does not have the squad that, when they went to the Final Four a few years ago, he had that big senior squad, like whole senior starting 5 with Sindarius Thornwell and Chris Silva and those guys.
Michael Carrera.
He doesn't have that this year. And I think Ole Miss might have something like that. Was the guy Schuler's been there 15 years and
I heard he's coming back next year. You ready for that?
Oh no.
I'm kidding.
Stop it.
I'm kidding.
I'm gonna go Ole Miss.
I want to make a case for Frank Martin to go past. I really do. I love him as a coach. I love seeing him and Coach Pearl opposite sides of each other on the court in a game together because it's usually pretty good basketball.
Great. Yeah.
But that's not the case this year for either team. And South Carolina's had a lot of struggles. They've had a lot that they've had to fight against uphill. They've showed a lot of fight. But I think Ole Miss, Schuler is just an incredible talent as much as he frustrates us, how he just never goes away, like literally, like you said, 15 years, it feels like in the league at this point. So I have to agree with you. I think Ole Miss does get the win over South Carolina and slides in to take on LSU. Hey, Auburn family, we're going to take a quick breather from this episode to bring you an important message. One of the most well-known things about Auburn fans is how loyal they are, and we show that loyalty by the colors that we wear. Let us help you stock up on those colors by going over to our tpublic.com store. There you'll find a variety of merchandise geared towards designs based on E2C Network and Auburn content. While TeePublic is known for their t-shirts, they have a wide selection of merchandise options for you to select one of these designs to be put on. They also have other types of apparel, stickers, mugs, and much more. Here's the beauty of it. Your purchase will help support this network and the content that we regularly produce. The purchase will also go to support independent artists who put a lot of hard work into designing these concepts, especially for you, the Auburn family. And did I mention that they regularly have sales? T-shirts for $13? You have to be kidding me. If you're ready to explore your purchase options, head on over to tpublic.com/store/E2C Network. You can also get there by going to our website at e2cnetwork.com/support. Now that you've got some options to suit up for game day, let's head back into this episode. Let's go back up to the top. Quarterfinals, game 6. Kentucky, we both agree.
Do you want me to do it?
Yeah, what do you want to do there?
I would love for this to happen. Love for Kentucky to go in and beat Alabama. And, it is hard to beat a team 3 times. Alabama swept Kentucky in the regular season in the conference play. It's hard to beat a team 3 times, especially a team that has a coach that has won a few national championships. But give me Alabama.
You okay? You settle. Do you need to go take a minute after saying that? Kentucky's on a rise right now. We've already talked about that. Boston doing a lot better. They still are just not a very cohesive team. Yeah. Alabama, as much as we have kind of knocked them for not being the best team of the SEC, we're not going to sit here and say they're not one of the best teams in the SEC. That is unarguable, just simply from the results of what they've done alone, even if you aren't perceived as the best. And I would make that argument for an Auburn team 3 years ago coming into the SEC tournament was probably just outside the top 5. Not a lot of respect, but at the end of the day, they won the SEC tournament. And may I just add that as of this moment, still reigning champs of the tournament because we didn't have one last year.
That's true.
Just saying. Show me another 2 year defending SEC championship, and I will be shocked. So I also want to make the case for Kentucky. But this is one of those games I'm willing to let Alabama have a little fun, and just because I don't want to be accused of being unfair towards the Bammers. So I will say that Alabama slides into the semifinals as well. That
was tough.
That's tough, man. That's real tough. All right. We both agreed that Florida moves on to take on Tennessee. This is like a traditional Florida-Tennessee rivalry thing. So I kind of like seeing this matchup here in game 7. 5, which is Florida, 4, which is Tennessee. What do you think?
They played Saturday in Knoxville, and Tennessee beat them pretty handily. But then I thought, didn't we get trounced by Florida? Mm-hmm. And didn't we beat Tennessee? And then Tennessee beat Florida? That just shows you how weird the SEC is.
Cyclical, man. It's cyclical.
Oh, my goodness. Both these teams are they're about the same. They really are. They're both experienced. They're both well coached. They're both, this could be a game that comes down to the final possession. I'm going to go with Tennessee.
I'm going to say Florida, simply because I do not have the confidence that Tennessee can beat Alabama. So there's no logic whatsoever in my pick.
You just want somebody to beat Alabama.
Exactly. And I'm trying to set up a scenario here where Alabama gets beat and doesn't make it to the SEC championship game. So that's what I'm sticking with, and it's as simple as that. Okay. I'm just going to – you're probably right. Tennessee's probably going to win this one, but I'm picking Florida just for that matchup. The better chance to beat Alabama, I think, personally. Even though I think Alabama beat them in the regular season. I think Florida's got a better option at doing that. All right, the next game, we've got number 2, Arkansas, and correct me if I'm wrong, we both said Missouri, right?
Missouri, yeah.
Okay, so Missouri is number 7 versus number 2, Arkansas. Is this even a contest?
That's not close. Arkansas.
Arkansas all the way on this one. I think it will be close to start with, but I think some of Missouri's ugly things that they've had kind of rear their head in the latter part of conference play will kind of surface again. They even may get out to a lead and may even have a lead at halftime, but I think Arkansas, with their talent, their coaching, will just wear down the Tigers, and that will be Arkansas moving on to the semifinals. Game 9, we have got Ole Miss versus LSU, the number 3 seed. A lot of weird feelings for LSU right now because they seem to win because they cheat. But
there's no reason Will Wade should be on the sidelines coaching a basketball game.
There are crazier things in this world happening than Will Wade being on the sideline, but that is one of them.
Yeah.
Aside from what we feel about that situation, LSU versus Ole Miss, who you got?
LSU.
Simply
couldn't tell you why. Couldn't tell you why.
I think that Kermit Davis has got a pretty good squad there. If there was going to be an upset,
that's like it. I agree.
I think this could be the big upset of the tournament. Ole Miss moves into the semifinals.
It just makes it easier for Arkansas.
Exactly. I think we both agree where this is heading in a second. I think it's like serendipitous. We both know where we're heading towards. We just have different ways of getting there.
Yep.
LSU, I think, does move on to the semifinals. So
Arkansas needs as much rest as possible for Championship Sunday.
So in that sense, we should send South Carolina.
Yeah, I agree. South Carolina, and then Georgia. I think Georgia needs to beat Missouri.
I change everything I said at this point. All right. So we're in the semifinals. Number 1, Alabama versus, we differ on this. I say Florida, you say Tennessee.
It could be, that's a toss game. It really is.
I think the only other toss up is that Mississippi State Kentucky matchup there. I do think it probably favors Kentucky a little bit more earlier on, but Tennessee versus Florida in that situation, I just don't know who to think. But Alabama, do they move on to the championship game?
Yes,
I think so as well.
This is bad.
I'm like I don't know what kind of like ritual I'm doing right now, just cleansing myself of all this stuff. But I think they're going to make it simply because they've got a pretty, not easy, but an easier route. I mean, they're opposite of the best team in the conference, so I think that they're going to probably be able to win. I think Florida stands the better chance. But it's Alabama. They'll find a way to lose at some point, even if it's just by 1 second. How brilliant would it be if they got
1 second buzzer beater?
It would be amazing.
That would be great.
Oh, they'd never live it down. All right. So Alabama,
they still don't from 2013.
Oh, they can't listen.
You can never live it down.
You can tell, like, they'll try to act like, oh, they're sold this point, and then they're just walking away, and
they're so mad,
just gritting their teeth, and they just cannot stand it. It doesn't. We could use that in equestrian, which, by the way, do you know that they have to borrow horses from us? It's just crazy. I think that
interesting.
Auburn Elvis will correct. I'm kind of being a little bit loose with why they have to borrow them and stuff like that. It's not as cut and dry. There's actually a good reason for it. But anyway, the point stands. They will never live down 1 second, no matter what sport it is. All right, this is the matchup we both have here of LSU number 3 versus number 2 Arkansas. You confident in Arkansas makes it through, or do you think LSU gives them a fight?
I think they do. I think they will give them a fight, and I don't think that's good. But give me Arkansas. They're just playing like the best team in the conference right now, and I don't really think it's close. I do think LSU fights with them and plays a good game. I bet that's one of the more entertaining games, not because it's going to be close, but because those are two really talented teams on the floor at the same time. So, but I will go with Arkansas.
I will as well. As we've said from the very get-go of this episode, Arkansas is the best team in the SEC in our opinions, and I would expect nothing less than them to get into the championship game, which is, now that we've said that several times, we've jinxed them. So, again, I blame you for all our losses. So goodness. I'll just blame you again for this one.
Then Vanderbilt's going all the way.
All right, championship game. We both agree different routes to get there, just by a little variance. Alabama versus Arkansas. In all seriousness, I think these are the two best teams in the SEC, so it's not a shock that we see this happening here, and seeing the Crimson Tide take on the Razorbacks 1 versus 2. And it's kind of, when you set up a bracket, that's what you want to see at the end, to see that you're right, 1 versus 2. So I need you to be honest with me here, and I want you to, we're going to do this together in 3, 2, 1. 3, 2, 1. Take off your orange and blue glasses. Okay. Put them down here, because I want us to be objective as we can here. We've made our Alabama jokes. Alabama versus Arkansas. Give me your thoughts on it and who you think wins.
I think it will be a fantastic basketball game. These are two teams that I do think are going in a different trajectory. I think Arkansas is going up, and then Alabama got too high, and now they're kind of leveling out right now. They split the season series. Both games were great basketball games. You could argue with the officials on both of them a little bit, a little one-sided on both sides in both games. But these are the two best teams in the conference right now. I think Alabama is one of, if not the best defensive team in the country. I think Arkansas is a really good scoring team and they do have the second best freshman in college basketball in the SEC this year. Not the first, because we all know who's the first, but the second best freshman. And he's really, really good. And then they've got that 7'9" guard who's I couldn't tell you Vanover. I don't know.
Vanover, yes,
he's like 17 feet tall and he's a guard. So,
Dirk Nowitzki is what you're saying.
Yes. I think it'll be a great game. I'm excited for it. Give me the Razorbacks.
I think Alabama has the hype. I think Arkansas has the coaching. I think, the defensive versus offensive matchup, which you spoke of, is very true here. And it'll be whose is better. And we'll, once we know that, we're going to know how good the SEC really is, because if, the offense of Arkansas can't overcome the defense of Alabama, then they're not going to be able to do much in the NCAA tournament. And as we thought they would be, they wouldn't be our best representative in the NCAA tournament.
Yeah.
So with all that being said, the way I see the game breaking down, if I want to do like just a full prediction here, I see Alabama having the hype, coming out very hot, probably getting a double-digit lead at some point. I think Arkansas will fight back, regain the lead, and then Alabama will somehow tie it up for them to go to overtime. That's just how much hype they have, and I think that they feed off of that a little bit about this is their year type of thing, kind of similar to what Auburn kind of felt the other time. The difference is that Auburn peaked at the right time. Alabama peaked earlier in the season. And it is a trajectory that is very slow, but is slowly going down as the season draws closer and closer to a close. So I will say this, I think it will be a great game. I think these two are the best teams in the SEC, hands down. But I do think that Arkansas gets the win in a very tight game, maybe a potentially overtime game. But Arkansas is your SEC champions. And I'm happy to admit that because they beat us twice, and I'm happy to admit that we lost to them as the SEC champions. So outside of, let's just say this, outside of Alabama and Arkansas, if there's going to be one team that wins the SEC championship, the tournament championship, who would it be? It's tough, isn't it?
It is really tough. I want to say jokes and say Vanderbilt, but no, I'm going to be real. I think it's either LSU, just because I see their path is not as hard. I think Ole Miss is a good team, and if they somehow could beat Arkansas, then I think they could win it. But as I'm going to go as low seeded as possible, I think the lowest team that can win this thing is Kentucky. Just because
it's Kentucky.
It's Kentucky.
They would do that right now.
And they would. They honestly would. They would just be horrible the whole year and come out and dominate in the SEC tournament.
Yeah, Calipari's like, hey, you know how we've all been making this thing about how we suck and y'all been giving it to us all season. Oh, it's over now.
Yeah, that was a prank.
Just kidding. Early April Fools, everybody. We got it. I think personally, if I had to pick someone in the lower seeds, I'd pick number 5, Florida. They don't have a lot of excitement around them, but I do think personally they actually have the easier path simply because
they could build off of a Vanderbilt or A&M. Yeah. So
they have an easy path through there. I think Tennessee has just shown so many kinks in their armor that they could come through there. I think Alabama's overrated. So I think they technically have the easiest path. So Florida is probably where I would go for like a surprise winner of the tournament. But that's not going to happen because we all know Arkansas is going to put it to the Alabama Crimson Tide. There you go. Put my orange and blue glasses back on. All right. So that is our predictions and prognostications for the SEC tournament. We all know that Auburn would have won had they been here no matter what anyway. So this is all just for show. But we hope that you will share with us your predictions and your previews of what you think will happen in the SEC tournament. And we'd love to hear from you there. And that's all we have from this episode. Before we head out of here, Gray, where can they find you on social media?
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter at Gray Oldenburg or on Instagram at Grayo21.
You can find me on Twitter at TigerEye24. Until we talk to you again, War Eagle. Before you get out of here, we want to remind you of a couple things. Head over to e2cnetwork.com, our website where you can find everything that you'll ever need from us, podcasts, blogs, and even ways to help support the show. If you want to find individual episodes, you can download all of these on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Google Play. So until we see you again, I want to remind you of one thing, that here at the network, we believe in Auburn and love it. The only question remains, do you?